It's Stu Richards at Bredin. Thank you for joining us for our latest Fast Cast. Today I have the pleasure of a conversation with Jim Granat at Enova OnDeck. We're going to talk about innovation in small business marketing and customer experience. And what I wanted to do as folks log in, for those of you who aren't familiar with Bredin, just to give you a quick background of what we're all about and what we do for marketers to the small business market or the small to mid-sized business audience. You can see on this slide the logos of the clients with whom we've worked over the years. The common thread is that in every case, we've helped our clients to better understand and engage with the small to mid-sized business audience, however they define them, and regardless of whether they're focused on financial services or technology or telecommunications, retail, office supplies, HR, you name it. Our goal is to help our clients ultimately to achieve their revenue objectives in the small, or again, small to mid-sized business space. And we do that in two ways. We conduct original research, and that can take a variety of forms. You can see the audience that we can survey on the left. And what I mean by that is if you're interested in understanding the mindset of small business owners or marketing decision makers, HR decision makers, financial decision makers, we can survey them. And that can be in any industry or specific industries. It can be in the US or overseas. Wide range of different kinds of attributes that we can select to help engage or understand specific audiences. You can see the kinds of topics that we've pursued for different clients. They really vary. And methodologically, we're pretty agnostic. We do qualitative research, and we do, oops, hold on one second. We do, oops, hold on. I'm being told my slides aren't moving. I gotta, whoops, yikes. Let's see if I can move this slide forward. Here we go. Let's try that. All right, so hopefully now, there we go. Now you can see the kinds of research that we provide, which again can be focused on different kinds of audiences, whether general small business owner or specific audiences, whether by industry, company size, location. And topically, we can focus in on anything that you're really interested in. Methodologically, I was mentioning, pretty agnostic, so we can do qualitative exploratory if you have product concepts that you want to get initial kind of feedback on, or quantitative, of course, if you want to size markets or really get a good read on different kinds of questions in the small business audience, determining, for example, which market segments represent the highest potential. Analytically, we're also pretty agnostic, so we can do all kinds of different analytics depending on, of course, your research objectives. So that might be helping to determine what's the optimal pricing strategy or product configuration, or the best media and messaging to use. Completely depends on your objectives. But at the end of the day, the research that we do is designed either to help you with insight to support strategy around marketing, again, whether it's market messaging or go-to-market media. It might be around the product experience, or it might be around product strategy itself. Or we do a lot of research to generate data that can support outbound programs. So conducting a survey that serves as the basis for a white paper, a research report, or webcast, or you name it. And we also create that content. So the content that we create, and excuse me if I sound a little hoarse, I've got a cold today. But the content that we create can be based on research that we do for you. It might be based on research that you already have, or it might be completely research independent. So, for example, based on just best practices and how to achieve different tasks for small business owners. But regardless of what the content is that we create for you, the goal is to help position you as an expert and advisor to the small business audience, to help them to get the most from your offerings and to help them succeed in their business objectives. So that's just a word on us. With that, what I wanted to do is to introduce our guest for the day, Jim Granat, who's the Senior Vice President and Co-Head at OnDeck. And Jim, if you'd be willing to pop up your camera, great. And what I wanted to do is to start, Jim, if you would give us an overview of Enova OnDeck and your role there.
Sure. Great to be on today. Thanks for having me. Sure. Enova International is a publicly traded company. It's a leading financial technology company providing online financial services through its AI and machine learning powered lending platform. Enova has services subprime customers as well as small businesses who frequently are underserved by traditional banks. We service more than 7 million customers and over $40 billion of loans and financing through our leading market products for these type of customers. My role is that I've been at Enova now for about 4 years. I oversee, along with Corey Camphor, all of the small business lending at Enova. I've been in the online lending space for about 15 years, first in the consumer side many years ago, and then about, coming up on, I think, 9-10 years in the small business side. So it's been a lot of fun, and recently, as 2 years ago almost, I think we're coming up on 2 years in October, Enova purchased OnDeck, which is now a part of its brands under its portfolio, and it's been a lot of fun taking that over and running the small business area.
Sure. And Jim, that gives you a really good perspective on the industry. And I know this is a very big picture question, but would love to get your take on what you see as the trends in or the future of small business lending in the United States.
Yeah, I mean, so on the small business lending side, I mean, I'm going to stay on the online side because that's just more of where I've spent the majority of my time. I think online is for sure more prevalent than it ever has been. More and more companies are looking online than they have in the past. I think with the generation of business owners that have grown up more on the internet and using obviously smartphones and spending quite a bit of time executing and understanding that financial service companies can be very easy to use, online. So I think the online presence around small business lending is very bright. And I think that there's going to be more of a focus around speed and ease because I think that's what drives behavior quite a bit on for most people when it comes to online execution. I don't think small business lending is out of the realm of what is going to be deemed as normal, of what people want in that area. And I think there's just going to be more and more technology companies that are in this space, as well as traditional banks. I think they're going to get into fintech. I think you're starting to see that more and more between Chase and Goldman Sachs and others. And it's a very large space. I think people will find their niches and play it out. And lastly, actually this month, I'm sorry, the National Federation of Independent Small Business Group had a optimism index that came out, and it talked about that 22% of small business owners reported that their credit needs weren't met. I'm sorry, their credit needs are met. So that means 78% were not met.
Yeah.
I think that there's going to be a large demand, and I think a lot of those will be serviced through, online players similar to what we do.
No, that's a great perspective. So that kind of raises the question, what are you seeing right now in terms of the effect of the economy on small businesses? Like, are you seeing more interest in loans or, any kind of credit risk increasing?
Well, I mean, I wish I could predict the future. Obviously, that'd be great. But you know, there is definitely an impact from, you know, all the macro environment that is out there, whether it's obviously inflation or whether it's, you know, the supply chains, you know, political discourse. I mean, you name it. I mean, there's lots of issues that are out there, but there also is some, you know, positives. There's we just went through obviously a pandemic. The businesses that survived and some even thrived through the pandemic, a lot of those are very strong. They tend to make very good decisions on their business because they just went through a hardship, so they're looking to expand, you know, or use their cash in the right ways. And there's a lot of health there. At the same time, you know, I think there's a real concern. So people, you know, have a gap that they need to fill. I mean, you know, 40% of businesses in a recent study I read, you know, are using their cash reserves, you know, to from a gap that is caused by inflation. So I think it is going to cause a demand increase in a lot of ways. But you know, I think that the credit has been, you know, remained strong, and you know, we believe that we are always, you know, making sure that we have thought through how to, you know, have great unit economics and think through the loans that we're going to put out, and you know, we're very optimistic about the future.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's great. No, that's really good to hear. You guys, you guys would be in as good a position as anyone to see what the economic impact of the current environment is on small businesses. Just in terms of how vendors can support small businesses, what would you say, you know, the folks who were listening in, you know, many of them are from financial services, many of them are not. But what are you seeing, or what would you recommend vendors can do to support businesses that may be struggling with the continued effects of the pandemic or the, you know, persistent effects of inflation?
You know, I mean, I always think about when you are approaching solving problems for customers. And that's what, you know, vendors are solving problems for customers, you know, whether it's B2C or B2B. You know, that you have to start with a great experience and a great product. And if you're servicing the customer and and you have a lot of discipline toward making sure that you have good unit economics and making good decisions for your business as you're serving those customers, I think that that is the best way to create, you know, a win-win across the board. You know, and that, I mean, I keep it pretty simple on this front. I mean, I think that, you know, there's going to be, you know, always ups and downs of the economy and macroeconomic cycles. I think, you know, staying true to trying to make very good decisions for your company, your shareholders, in our case, as well as the customers, I think will just bode well.
Mm-hmm. That's great. So one of the things we talked about in setting up this webcast was innovation and lending. And it sounds like that's something that you really focused on OnDeck. I'd love to hear what your experience has been in driving innovation and lending, and what effect that's had on everything from, you know, the customer experience to a shift to open banking.
Sure. Well, open banking, I mean, we've been using, you know, forms of EBS, electronic bank statements, and form of open banking for a long time. Making access easier will only make it better for all parties. You know, and obviously the more data that's out there around, you know, transactions, you know, and helping people automate the way that they can underwrite or gather information in a streamlined manner will make the speed and ease, which again I alluded to earlier, is a key factor to what people are looking for and what their desire is in finding, you know, good vendors. Or I think that all these things will add up to innovation in the market. As we think about innovation, as we try to make it, you know, faster and easier, and try to use, you know, great machine learning, you know, as toward the way we underwrite, the better we get at it, the more we can take, you know, what we've learned in the efficiencies and start to reinvest them into, broadening the box, more products, and trying to do things that will allow us to service more people in a much easier fashion. And I think that also the speed in which a online lender can play versus a traditional bank, which tends to be, significantly slower. And they're making different style loans. They're not as interested. Traditional banks are not usually interested in doing smaller loans, in more risky areas. And understandably, their underwriting costs are the same, and the return on investment requirements are different. And I think that therefore you target slightly different people, in different pockets of the market. And as we use our innovation to be able to underwrite in different ways, faster, and again, hopefully it's less fields they would have to fill out on an application, faster to a decision, making renewals or if you're using a line of credit, more pulls available in an easier fashion. I think these are ways that we think about innovation to drive a better customer experience, and hence then we end up hopefully on the winning side of this market over time.
No, that's great. One of the things that's been interesting about this economy is the spike in the number of small businesses that have been forming over the past year or so. And I'd love to get your take on what that surge in new small business formation means for the financial services industry in particular, but for all marketers to the small business audience generally.
Yeah, that's a great point. I read something, I think Intuit put this out on a study that they had, that there was roughly about 17 million businesses that were formed. I'm sure many of those were gig economy style, approaches as well. But I've read in numerous places that it's, the most in history have been formed over the last 2 years.
Yep.
I think that's pretty normal during a downturn, that people who are at home, who may not be working or get concerned and want to have, start to take matters into their own hands, start businesses. For groups like us and some of our others, as those businesses go past the initial startup phase and get into a year or two in business and start to get into that, okay, I really have a real business that has revenue, been around a few years, is in a growth factor, or has working capital needs, they fit more of what we tend to look at. And I think as they go on other areas and other boxes, credit boxes for other places, and or potential customers in the financial services areas for other players in the industry. And I think so that is a tailwind, and we feel really good about that for the long-term future. As you go through, again, these cycles, I think there'll be some up and downs, but we're, incredibly bullish about the prospects of the upcoming years, and feel really good about our position.
That's great. That's a notoriously difficult segment to market to historically. Have you guys been innovating in marketing as well to reach startup businesses?
Yeah, I mean, of course, you have to have a lot of ways to reach out to businesses because there is unfortunately not a silver bullet out there that I have seen in my 10 years of doing this, but there are a lot of better ways. We try to be very diverse, obviously, also because I think that's a good way to run a business, is to have some diversity toward the way you approach a market. So obviously we have forms of partnerships that are strategic. We have forms of independent sales organizations, as well as obviously all of our direct marketing, which we again have. We have TV commercials, which we launched again, about 7-8 months ago, that are out there. We direct mail, obviously do quite a bit, on the different SEM, SEO, and, go through all the different channels and optimize quite often. But you have to be really good at numerous ways of trying to find customers.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I've got one more question for you, but I would like to invite anyone who's part of this webcast to submit via the chat feature that's on the right-hand side of your screen. Any questions for Jim? and we'll submit those. But Jim, just a question for you. What would you say innovation has meant for OnDeck's performance?
Well, I think it's a differentiating factor, for Enova in this space. I think they've, had a long history of being innovators in the space, both in consumer and small business lending. And we continue to try to drive a very efficient business using automation as an all online business. It gives us good economy of scale. Having multiple businesses and not being a monoline gives us operational leverage. And when you're able to innovate and use those to your advantage, again, we're able to take our analytics and tech across multiple learnings and apply them. And I think that really, hopefully, makes us a leader in the speed and ease game, which we think is a differentiator. And done in the right way can build a moat around what we do versus our peers. And then when we learn and we get benefit from that, we can pass along the benefits by, again, expanding our credit boxes, looking at better products, doing multiple of things that are hopefully advantageous, not only for the customer, but in long term, for us, and continue to drive us as into the leader position in the market.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so I think you've answered all of the questions that our attendees had. I'm not seeing any questions coming up in the chat box. But Jim, are there any closing comments you'd like to make about innovation in lending, in marketing, in customer experience in terms of addressing the needs of small business?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something that I think in any business and anything you go after, I think if you use your passion toward what your craft, it will drive innovation as a leader. And I'm very passionate about small businesses and helping them achieve their goals. I mean, it's a way of fueling the American dream for most people who want to own their own company, who want to help put their family and kids through college and their employees' kids through college, and drive benefit to Main Street. And it's something I really resonate with. Both of my grandfathers were small business owners. I have an uncle who was a very successful small business owner, and it's super cool to have seen that. And for me, not to be a small business owner on my own, although I was in the past, I think now to help small business owners is really rewarding. And I think when you're excited about what you do, and then you couple it up with a company like Enova and their tech and analytics, I think hopefully only good things can come from that.
Okay. Oh, that's great. Those are great parting words. And yeah, we likewise at Bredin are very much inspired by the entrepreneurial spirit, and are constantly surprised by the innovation we see on the part of small business owners and their dynamism, and especially their ability to survive. Gosh, especially from 2008 till today, it's been pretty bumpy, but there's been incredible dynamism on the part of them. So yeah, we share that enthusiasm with you about the state of the small business market. Well, Jim, this has been great. Thank you so much for your time today. It's a really great conversation, and I appreciate your sharing your expertise on small business lending and innovation. And thank you again for your time.
You got it. Thank you.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.